Well, first of all, Steve, let me say that it's such an honor to get a chance to talk today. I'm a huge fan of your work, of course, with KIX. Yeah, this new solo album you have out, really impressive, really good stuff. I like what you've done here. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's almost hard. I know I've read similar interviews that you've done recently about the solo album, saying that, you know, when you were working on these songs, you know, it was clear that these were not KIX songs, but, you know, some of them don't seem that far out of the element of KIX as well. But, I mean, you are the vocalist for KIX, so it's kind of hard to separate that maybe.
Yeah, I totally get that. When I write songs, I don't write them for any one particular project. I just write, you know, the other guys, when they write songs, they have a specific direction that they like to go in, and they like to stay in that lane and not go too far away from it. And I personally have a lot of influences in music, so I don't write that way. I just write, if I come up with a good hook, a good melody line, and a funny ass title, I roll with it. So,
well, there's definitely no shortage of funny titles in this one, I have to say.
That's absolutely on purpose.
Well, you know, you've always had a sense of humor, and that's one of the things I've always liked about KIX. You know, you look at the song titles over the years and subject matter of some of the songs, they just add a nice element of humor in there, like a lighthearted humor.
Yeah, that's always been our intention. We've never been a preachy band. We don't try to tell people how to run their lives. We just say, forget your problems for a while, pull up to the KIX wagon and have some fun.
Well, so tell me a little bit about making this album. It sounds like obviously it was maybe a pandemic project.
It absolutely was a pandemic project. I had no plan to do a solo album. I mean, I was just writing these songs, and I thought if and when KIX is ready to do another record, I'm going to throw my pile of songs into the hat and see which one to get pulled out. So it just kind of happened. It fell into my lap actually because of Jimmy Chalfant, our drummer, and Brad Divens, who has a studio in his house. And these guys were bored, and they were getting together and doing cover songs, recording cover songs, and just throwing them on Facebook and getting a reaction. And one day Jimmy said to Brad, he said, you know, Steve's sitting on a pile of songs. Why don't we get him in here and record some originals from the ground up just to give Brad some more experience in his studio. So Brad invited me over, and I took my 12 songs that are on the record and played them all for him, and he said, let's do them all. And I thought, well, I'm doing a solo record, aren't I? And he looked at me and goes, I think we are, yeah. So, and you know, and we got together in our free time or whenever we wanted to. It was no pressure, and we were doing it for the fun of it. And everybody got into it and really worked hard on it, and it shows. I mean, when I took the demos over, I had played everything on the demos, all the drums, guitars, bass, all the vocals, everything. And when these guys got it and took it to a new level, especially Bob Paré. Bob had specific ideas of which guitars and which amp sounds he's going to use for every song that he played on. And that made a world of difference because I just use plug-ins and I plug in and go.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
and of course, having an experienced bass player like Brad Divens come in and play. I got to play a couple bass songs. I got to play a couple drum tracks. I insisted on having a couple songs where I played everything, just so people know I'm more than just a singer.
So a true solo project, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, I couldn't have done it without these guys. They really stepped it up, and everybody's just really proud of it, and it seems to be doing pretty well.
Yeah, and you guys seem like a pretty tight-knit group in KIX, but was that kind of fun for you to work with a different set of musicians on this as well?
Yeah, it absolutely was. It gets the creative juices flowing. I mean, working with Jimmy is always a pleasure. Jimmy's probably my best friend. And, you know, we had to do some virtual recording. Jimmy did most of the drum tracks from his house and sent the files into Brad. I did all the vocals from my house and took the files up to Brad. Bob and Brad probably were together more than any of us as they recorded like 8 of the rhythm tracks, and I played the other 8 rhythm tracks that I'd already played on the demo, and they just kind of reamped them, so I didn't have to go in and replay everything. So, but It worked well. I mean, I don't think anybody would ever be able to tell that it was done, it was pieced together like that.
No, and honestly, in today's, day and age, I mean, that's how a lot of recordings are done. I mean, you
got to use the technology. If all the old men get off my lawn guys that say, "Oh, I don't use that shit. I use real tape," and well, you're an asshole because you just don't you don't take the time to learn the technology. That's just saying I'm too stupid to learn that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that much different from tape. I mean, obviously you can re-record it. You can go over and piece things together a little bit, fix it. But
I've recorded with tape. I'll take digital anytime because you can go in and you can cut it up in a heartbeat. Where it's tape, it's meticulous and you got to cut it with a razor and it
True.
sucks. I mean, the way things are done now is just so much more efficient.
Okay. I was going to say I'm not a purist myself when it comes to audio recording, whether it's tape or digital. I like it all, but I think what's interesting too is you did all this digitally, but it has all the feeling, and that's what matters. I mean, the songs come out great, and they rock. I mean, you've got good material, and it has an emotional quality to all of it, and that's what really matters. I think whether you're doing something on a computer, or digitally recording something, or whether you're doing it on tape.
Yeah, bottom line, it's the music. It's not how you record it. It's even with this vinyl explosion right now, people don't realize that all these things that they're listening to on vinyl were recorded digitally.
yeah, exactly. So then they're just transferred over to that medium.
Just so they can lay that needle down on the vinyl and go, I love vinyl. It sounds better.
So now, just out of curiosity, I mean, you guys recently released some remasters, like a 30-year edition there.
Yep.
When you were working on your, the remakes of the Midnight Dynamite and Blow My Fuse, did you transfer those from master tape to digital and then work on them digitally when you were remastering them and fixing them up?
Yeah.
Mark
Schenker got a hold of the masters and digitized them and sent them down to Bo Hill, and Bo worked on them with Pro Tools. And he did an amazing job on Fuse 30 that when we did a show in Houston, and Bo came out to the show to just say hey and hang out with us for a bit, and he looked at us just out of the blue and he said, I'd like to have another crack at Midnight Dynamite. I think I can beat what I did the last time. And we had the masters, and he was willing to do it, just because he wanted to do it. So it was like, why not? Go for it. And once again, those songs just jump off that CD now, whereas before it was kind of muddied up with all the way we recorded things in the 80s, with all the effects and reverb and echoes and all that. So Bo just really cleaned it up and brought the vocals out really nice out in front, and drums are thunder, and Bo's just great at that stuff.
Yeah, and I think those sounded great. Both of those projects came out excellent. So you guys are actually back out on the road again. So that's got to be fun to get back in front of a live audience. You just finished up the M3 Fest, and looks like you got a pretty good string of dates still out there.
Yeah, we do.
How's that going?
It's going great. We started off about 4 weeks ago in Dallas and Houston. They were our first real shows back, and I'm glad we got to do a couple of tune-up shows before we did M3, because it really prepared us to get out and kill in front of our hometown crowd. But we've been to Fort Myers, Florida. We've been to North Dakota and Denver. So having those shows under our belt really helped us to get our chops back.
So let me ask you regarding the pandemic. Obviously, there's still a lot of cases. We just reported a news story today that Poison's drummer Ricky Rocket has announced that he has COVID after being fully vaccinated. But it's not serious at this point. It's more mild symptoms in his case.
Right.
Are you guys taking any particular precautions out on the road because of that situation?
We all got vaccinated, and you can't just stay home for the rest of your life. So we're just out there taking a chance. I feel that if one of us would get it, it's not going to be that bad, like you just said about Ricky.
Yeah.
People who get vaccinated have very mild symptoms, and it's not a danger. So we're not too concerned about it. And when we travel, it's still mandatory to wear the mask from the time you step into the airport to the time you leave. So that's annoying. But other than that, I mean, if you look at M3 the other day, you would never know there was a pandemic because there was no mask anywhere.
True, the entire audience, it looked like it
which
never
was nice,
happened.
and I just hope it doesn't turn into a super spreader event. That's our concern. It's the fans.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you were saying earlier about not maybe since you're vaccinated, not a serious case. Hopefully, if anybody does pick it up, and even Ricky Rocket said, he's still 100% in favor of the vaccine because his doctor told him he would probably be seriously ill if he hadn't had the vaccine because they believe it's the Delta variant. So
yeah, and he's had some health problems, so that probably saved his life.
Yeah, exactly. So are you guys doing meet and greets, or is that just something you can't do on the road right now? Because
yeah, we do them. We're back on them damn things.
Doesn't sound like it's one of your favorites.
I don't like them because it's just that they herd these people in. It's so impersonal. These people pay extra money to get a picture with the band, and it's like they're with us for like 5 seconds and out. So I don't know. I think it's kind of goofy, but I guess the fans like it, and the promoters make more money. That's what it's all about.
Well, you guys are a classic band. I can certainly see why people want the opportunity to have their picture with you guys.
No, I get it. I went to see Alice Cooper last summer or 2 summers ago, and my good friend Lizzie Hale hooked us up. They were opening for him, and I got to meet Alice, but it was through a meet and greet, so it was so impersonal. And I wanted so many things I would have liked to have said to him, and as soon as I met him, I got starstruck and I couldn't talk. That's how much his music meant to me.
Well, it's a big deal. I've actually had a chance to meet Alice as well, and yeah, it's funny. He's a small framed guy.
Yeah.
He's not his personality and just that legendary atmosphere that surrounds him is a little overwhelming. When you get
an icon.
Yeah, exactly.
He's an icon.
So let's talk about lyrics. When you were working on lyrics for whatever song, whether in this case your solo album or for KIX, where do you get where do you get your inspirations from? What inspires you for a lot of this stuff?
It just usually just pops into my head. I'll be mowing the lawn and a song title will hit me and it's like, oh, I got to write that down. And anytime I get a good title, I just write them down until I have like a book of song titles, and then as I write a piece of music that one of those titles will fit, well, then I'll craft a song around that. So I'm not one of those guys that reads the papers and writes about it. It's just, if something funny happens, which usually is what gets my attention, if it's humorous and it's catchy, that I'll latch onto it.
Well, your style, and of course, KIX has always reminded me a little bit of early AC/DC as far as, the music rock hard, and then there's some
that's fair.
Yeah, a little tongue-in-cheek, kind of humor always thrown in there.
Bon Scott is a huge influence on at least me lyrically. I mean, his lyrics were always funny and double entendres and very sexual, and I always loved his lyrics. So when I write lyrics, I try to say, how would Bon do this? So, and I just I steal from his memory.
Well, there you go. Well, I certainly kind of get that correlation. But you guys do your own unique thing. So, I never felt like it was a ripoff or anything, mind you. But
I know what you're saying. There's definitely influence here. Definitely some influence.
So, speaking of artists, like we're talking about, AC/DC, Alice Cooper here, who kind of inspired you to want to perform in the first place?
The Beatles. I'm old enough. I'm an old man. I remember seeing the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and I knew right then and there that's what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. And I always loved their music, their melodies, their harmonies, and then even though the Monkees weren't a real band, they had some great songwriters that wrote for that show.
Yeah, they did.
I used to love their stuff. Then I got into the harder stuff like Alice Cooper, James Gang, Deep Purple, Grand Funk Railroad. Those were my biggest influences through the late 60s and 70s. So I still draw from those influences. So that's why this record sounds so diverse and doesn't sound like a KIX album.
Yeah, and it is very, I guess, eclectic would be the word. I mean, it just bounces around a little bit, but it's also kind of got a nice, it's cohesive as an album, too. So it's not so different that, you know, anything on there like really stands out as, wow, what was he, you know, what was he trying to do there as opposed to the rest of the album. It's still pretty cohesive.
Well, if you like dirty lyrics, you're going to like the record.
Yeah. Well, I'm a fan. so right away, yeah, you got me hooked in there. So if you weren't performing in a band, and it's probably hard for you to imagine at this point in your career, but what do you think you would have done? I mean, do you like have for hobbies or things outside of music that you think maybe you would have done instead?
I don't know. I've been asked that before, and honestly, if I wouldn't have made it in music, there was a large paper mill in my hometown that my grandfather, my father, my mother, my brothers, everybody worked at the paper mill. More than likely, I would have wound up at the paper mill. But thank God I got the hell out of there. And
well, I'm glad you chose to do what you did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Certainly.
I mean, it was a big move for me as a kid to leave my hometown and come to big downtown Hagerstown and start with the Shoes at the time, which turned into KIX.
Yeah, so when it comes to, you know, we talked about writing songs earlier. Do you prefer to write material, or do you like to get up in front of a live audience? I mean, which is more gratifying to you?
Oh, the live audience is way more gratifying. Writing's hard. Writing takes a lot of thought, a lot of rewrites, and a lot of tail between the legs when you show it to somebody and you don't get the reaction you're hoping for. So writing is not an easy thing to do. And when you come up with some good stuff, you know, then it's just as rewarding as a great stage performance.
Yeah, and I think recording live, you get that instant feedback. I mean, you get the audience
immediately
responding to what you're doing. So, I mean, that's got to be a rush.
Well, I think that's what I excel at, is making sure the audience is paying attention, having a good time, and reacting.
Yeah, you're a great front man. You definitely keep the audience engaged. So you know, that's exactly what people want to see, especially now after the pandemic. People want a show, you know.
Yep.
So I'm glad to see you guys, you know, back out on the road. You know, hoping everybody stays safe there. Speaking of KIX, how's Ronnie doing? Do you guys are you talking to him? I know he's not currently touring with you guys and not able to make that work out.
Yeah, Ronnie's he's been so up and down the past several years that we've been close to making the move, and he comes in and he plays well and he's good for a couple of months, and then he slides back off the wagon. So it's been tough. But this time we really didn't have a choice, as he's in recovery for probably a year, and we had to get somebody in to replace him, just because it's not fair to the fans to only play half the music when we did it 4 pieces, just Brian. So everybody asked, is the door open? As of now, the door is open for Ronnie, and it truly is up to him if he can get better and get his life together. And that's the most important thing. Playing in the band is secondary to us. We want him to be healthy and his mind cleared and ready to, you know, go full steam ahead again.
Well, good. So you guys do keep in touch somewhat, at least from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, him and Brian are probably the closest, and it's a situation where you can't even call him. I mean, he's got to call you, and he's got to have somebody there in the room with him when he's talking. So it's a strange situation to try to reach out.
Well, I hope he gets well soon. I mean,
we all do.
You guys would love to have him back in the band, I'm sure, too.
Well, he's dynamic on stage. I mean, that the title "Kid Dynamite" is you know, the song is about Ronnie and his addictions and recoveries, and so he's just such a dynamic performer that he adds a lot to our show, and we know that. But the guy that's filling in right now, Bob Paré, is doing an amazing job. Most of the fans, you know, they're disappointed that Ronnie's not there, but they're not disappointed with the show, and that speaks volumes for Bob. Yeah,
and you know, like I said, you need to recreate, you know, the as close as you can your original sound. You know, I mean, so you have a little bit bigger repertoire to work with there as far as the amount of material and albums you have out there that you can cover. So yeah, I think that's good, and I think most people that are true KIX fans, they kind of understand that situation. So
I think they do too, because
they know what's happening.
Yeah, it's been known for quite a while that Ronnie's been battling addiction, and like I say, he's up and down with it. So right now, we think he's taking it really seriously, and we're hoping by the end of the year, we'll have an idea of whether he'll be able to make it back or not.
Gotcha. So, of course, I'm going to ask about a new KIX album. I have heard that you have mentioned that you do believe that you guys will record another album. How far out do you think that would be?
You know what? I have no idea. I mean, I just I say never. But right now, there's nothing in the pipeline. We've got so many makeup shows to do because of the pandemic that sure. I don't see a timetable, and I haven't heard any new music other than the stuff that I offered up. So until I hear some music or a timetable, and, you know, to be honest with you, on the business end of putting out a KIX album, it doesn't make financial sense at this point, just because sure. we loved having Taylor Rhodes as part of the Rock Your Face Off album. He produced it. And, you know, Taylor came with a pretty good price tag that I don't even know if we can recoup enough money to pay him back these days, because people just don't buy enough product. It's all streamed, and the money you make there is not very much.
Yeah, and this is something that I hear from all the artists that I talk to, and it's such a shame of all the places these, you know, record moguls and companies and corporations could take the money from. They take it from the artist.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are making the material. You guys are keeping that industry afloat, and yet, you know, people get cheap streaming or free streaming and listen to your music, I mean, basically for free. I mean, you know, they complained about people stealing the Napster years ago, but it's really not that much different as far as royalties go for you guys, I'm sure. So.
Nope. The only royalties I ever see is from Sound Exchange, and that's just, you know, if you played on a record and it plays on the radio, you get paid, and it hasn't always been like that. That just started about 8 or 9 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, because you guys have such a long history, and, you know, being on Atlantic Records and everything, I mean, you know, there's a lot of your material out there and has been out there. So, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, it's weird from physical product, I will say that, to more of a streaming environment. Even as a fan, I kind of like to have tangible items to hold. Look at the liner notes, you know, maybe I'm old school, but I always kind of like that sort of thing. And it's weird to not have a cover or anything, so to speak of.
Yeah. You're not alone
there.
I was just going to do it digital at first, and then I got talked into doing physical copy, and I'm so glad I did, because the fans really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think so. And you know, most of the artists that, at least in my age group, and people who like your new solo album, if you're welcome. Do you have that available when you guys are touring live as KIX for fans to buy?
Yeah, especially just mainly at the local shows. We don't carry merch when we do fly dates. It's just too much of a hassle. But around here, we'll have my CD as well as Midnight Dynamite Relit and Fuse 30. We sell all that at the merch table. And if you want a physical copy and you can't make it out to a show, you can go to Right Rock. It's RIGHTROCK sportswear.com. They handle all the KIX merch there, and they're handling the sale of my CD. So if people who want to get it, I believe they sold out last week, which is a good problem. So we did a reorder, and but you can still order it, and it's just be like a couple more weeks because it's on back order.
Nice. Well, good. Yeah, I'm glad to see it's out. Like I said, it's an awesome album. You did a great job on it. All the musicians you brought in. And I think it's something any KIX fan would love, having heard you for KIX. But then I think, you've got a lot of people, like you said, it's a little eclectic, who kind of like this little divergent from, I don't want to say a general KIX sound, but yeah, kind of, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you can't please everybody, and I was just having fun. I wasn't trying to impress anybody.
Well, I think that's the point of a solo album, though, isn't it? I mean, it's to do what you do and see what people think of it. And if they don't like it, then, get ready to buy the new KIX album.
There you go. But I think anybody that likes hard rock music, I think will enjoy this record. It's a fun, uplifting record. And it's got good lyrics.
Good dirty lyrics, right?
Yeah, good dirty lyrics.
What's the strangest request you have ever received from one of your fans?
That's a great question. I don't really, nothing pops into my head right away.
I've had some interesting answers to that question. Let me tell you. Of course, some of them.
I mean, there's all the sexual stuff, but that's boring.
Sure.
I don't know. One thing that gets on my nerves, and this happens to us a lot at like airports, where people will come in with like 100 things and want us to sign them all, so they can go sell. And they swear, I'm just a big fan. I collected all this stuff, and we know they're full of shit. But that annoys me when people do that, because I don't mind doing it at shows or meet and greets or in stores, but just traveling all day long, you're tired as hell, you're grumpy because you're traveling, and then somebody hits you with 100 things for you to sign. I'm like, nope, not going to do it.
Well, and I can see your point, because you kind of wonder, if they're making, money off of your work.
Of course they are.
By having you sign it, and I mean, I'm sure you want to, you draw your little stick guy when you get out class and stuff, the little stick man, and I know you like to do, to meet the fans from time to time and offer them that sort of thing, but you really want to make sure, I would assume, that they're true fans, not somebody just trying to make money off your name.
Exactly.
What would you consider to be your biggest accomplishment thus far?
I think as a band and as a personal accomplishment, the record Blow My Fuse, which finally got us out of the van and out of the bars and into a bus and into arenas and large theaters, took us to Japan and the UK. So just being a part of that, I've seen what it's actually like to be somewhat of a rock star. That was the most exciting time in our lives, because we've never felt like that before or since.
Well, dude, you're always a rock star to me, and I'm sure to many of your fans. I mean,
well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I grew up with KIX posters on my wall. I'm not that much younger than you, but I was a teenager and had the KIX stuff all over my wall and ceilings everywhere. I had my room covered from top to bottom with the bands that I liked, and you guys were definitely at the top of the list. So I appreciate you taking your time out to talk to XS Rock today. And stay safe out on the road, and we'll continue to promote your album.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. Take care. Bye.
All right, you too. Bye.